updates on playing the rest of the Space Pilgrim series. This is the one where I really liked episode 1, so I'll be going through every episode in as much of a brief review as I can, and then wrap it up all at the end with a conclusion. But before we start, I just want to add one note. I found it really nice. In every episode, your main character and Sabina get a new outfit. Here's all of those throughout the series. Gotta say, unfortunately, my favourite is still the first game. I think the goggles look really cool. It's a shame you spend the most of the time with just both characters having short hair that's very similar. I also find it a little odd that Gale goes from having freckles and a beauty mark to only having freckles to only having a beauty mark throughout the series. And I think that's probably just an error because it wouldn't make much sense on purpose. Like, is she using makeup to selectively cover only one of the several facial blemishes she has? Now I've mentioned that, you can't unsee it, sorry. But then my second favourite is the one she gets at the very end. It's a nice midway point between the original design and the ones going forward. And here's also their design from the sequel quadrilogy Space Pilgrim Academy. I didn't end up playing this one because, surprise, I ended up not liking these games as much as I did the first episode. So I just went till the end of the first plot and then I'm like, I'm not going to commit to another even longer second games when I have no idea whether I'll like them more. But it's at least cool to see that they started to get like original art put in there. Maybe that's a sign they do get better, but I'm not going to be the one to find out. I am washing my hands of space. I am fleeing back to Earth. I just, extracted the images. Here they are. This is presumably what they look like. From what I've heard, apparently the sequels have a different main character, but the original characters do come back in some kind of cameo. There they go. There I go. Goodbye. Except Nox, I have to continue the review. Ah! Episode 2 I immediately didn't really like very much. You ever just play a sequel and you think this is made as a sequel first and a game second? The vast majority of it was just following up on stuff in the previous game and we're setting up stuff for the next sequel. There wasn't really any kind of climax whatsoever to the story. It just introduced a bunch of characters and then kind of went, okay, bye. So the vague general plot in this one is you go back to doing your regular general work, shuffling passengers around the place. It seems at first that you just have a set of normal passengers. Turns out one of them's a mad scientist. One of them is a secret religious order that is trying to battle the injustice in the world. And one of them is just actually a rando who doesn't matter to anything. So first off, positives. I really liked Emmett. He's like a super experimental human mimicking droid. First of all, I like his design. Everyone just uses default RPGmaker character creator, but I think they actually managed to do pretty good with it in this. I like the ethereal yellowish gradient to his skin. It's unusual for a robot. He's also just a super relatable and fun character. He's like the innocent soft boy that the team really needed, because the only characters who remained from the first game are the two sass women, so it's nice to have someone to balance out. He's just always sweet and adorable and has lots of really fun dialogue about his unique perspective as a droid, and he's just really relatable to me as an autistic person, because a lot of the stuff that they do with him not being familiar with humanity and social interaction stuff, it's just stuff I've dealt with in my real life, and I felt yeah, I want to give this guy a big hug. And the section we get to play as him is really good. Another thing I really like in this series is how whenever you change the perspective of a different character, all the flavor text around the world changes to be into their perspective. I just ran around clicking on everything. I think my favorite was how he gave a name to every rock around the testing lab where he was born. That's just so cute. And there are a lot of very deep and intellectual names for all these rocks. But then the sweetest one is he named his favourite one after his dad. And then moving on to the bad stuff. All the other characters except Emmett weren't very memorable. In the first chapter, the main selling point to me was how endearing all the NPCs were. You had the cool Uncle Colonel. You had the droids in love. You had Subar the ship cat. Basically, for chapter 2, just imagine the whole world is full of very base level jokes about certain demographics being bad, and it really shows its age in a way that a lot of the humour in the first chapter didn't. There's just one character whose entire purpose is just to be a joke that teenagers these days are lazy and weak, and he's so wimpy, he's not a real man. Every character aside from the ones that you know are going to be important, they're just boiled down to the most bare minimum basic archetype stereotype of that character. And this guy, I genuinely don't know why he's even there, because he doesn't have a character arc, he doesn't do anything. It starts off seeming like he is going to have a character arc because he wants to join the Jackals, which now we know more information about who they are. They're the space cops, the evil space cops. He idealizes them, he eats up all the propaganda. I was like, okay, cool, where are we going to go with this? We don't go anywhere with this. We just make fun of him for wanting to join the police despite being so weak and wimp. Clearly couldn't actually fight. And then he sees them being jerks. And then he doesn't even have a scene of saying, maybe I was wrong. You just see him see them be jerks, and then he's gone. He never appears again in any future scenes, and the characters just say off screen, oh, he left the ship because he gave up on his dreams and he sees he was wrong now. Don't even mention where he went in that game. You have to wait until the next game where they tell you off screen what happened with Lucas. I expect to have actual development and an arc and a conclusion to that. Am I weird for that? In the first game there was only like one point where I needed a guide to figure out what to do. And in this one, there's a lot more puzzles where it's like, how could anyone figure that out? Because you have to do things that in real life would be outright negative to the characters. With the mad scientist character, that's the biggest thing that ruined my enjoyment here. There's a grumpy mad scientist character, the guy who created Emmett, and no matter what you do, he dies horribly and suddenly, and there's nothing you can stop, and it's really upsetting. And it sucks because he had so much potential. He started off grumpy, and all like, oh, he's not really my son, he's just my experiment, but he had these signs that he maybe did care about him, and he was like developing out through it, and it's like he's slightly egotistical, but maybe he can work on it, maybe he can form a better relationship with his child, and then just know he dies off screen. Emmett couldn't do nothing to stop it, you could do nothing to stop it, and we just sort of take Emmett with us to somewhere else and never really talk about it ever again. And the worst part that made me so sad is the one only final interaction you get to have with this mad scientist before he dies is a really confusing puzzle where no one would figure out how to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you combine sleeping pills and a super high caffeine energy drink, would that not either cancel each other out or make you incredibly sick? That's the solution to the puzzle. Okay, you need to get this guy to go to sleep so you can sneak past him and steal something from him. What do? You hand him something specifically which is stated to be high caffeine with a sleeping pill in it, and somehow it does knock him out rather than just making him throw up all over the floor, and then he dies. He wakes up for 5 seconds and dies, and he had the worst day ever. He was very sick, he passed out on the floor, someone stole his shit, and then he wakes up and he's like, what the fuck is going on? Shot in the head. And it just made me really, really upset. And I know it's like my bias because I like mad scientist characters. I hate seeing their wasted potential like this, but even if you take it out of that, it's wasted potential from the perspective that the character of Emmett's dad could be lots of potential, even if you don't like grumpy grandpa mad scientist. It did also feel like a big waste of screen time too. You already had so little actual story happening, why do you take up the time of more of this? Funny dialogue from mad scientist man before his unfortunate demise. Hallucinations started to arrive this morning, but they seem to have stopped now. Incidentally, I would have liked to be warned that the ship was carrying a shipment of giant rhesus monkeys. I did like there's a bit of world building about what's in the Church of All or whatever it was called in the first game. It actually seemed pretty cool and accepting. It clarifies that they don't believe just because we are all one of the great consciousness means that we should eliminate individuality. I like the way they explained it. A creature made of nothing but legs would find it difficult to function. We should all celebrate our individuality and just work together to be the greater whole for humanity, find all our strength, and how they can all slot together like a big old puzzle. Also interesting how they believe that there isn't a singular deity, but rather than if there is a supreme being who created us all, and all us human beings are fragments of that one individual soul, and so that's why by working together we can improve the cosmos and everything. It's cool, it's interesting. I like to see a fancy religion that isn't just we kind of copied Christianity and then just slapped a space pope hat on it. Minor little minigame thing I liked. At one point you have to fake an ID for a non-existent passenger. What I found fun is it was a little minigame. You fill out a little questionnaire and you get a different face for your fake passenger. So I went through and I gathered all of them, and here's a little montage. I also kind of really disliked, how the sassy lady Sabina was having a redemption arc at the end of the first game, and she kind of just regressed entirely to be the sarcastic rude one again here. She kind of goes in a circle with the same arc of being a jerk, and then at the end, oh actually I do care about you, I'm going to do some stuff to help you. It didn't hit as well the second time. I was kind of expecting to see some kind of progress in the relationship, and speaking of which, at the end of the first game it seemed that there was a bit of shipping tease between her and the protagonist, and I really disliked how in this game, but they just bring it up offhand as a joke, where she jokes, haha, what if we're dating her, and then they just respond up with, you know we're not. Stop teasing me like that. So I guess that's being shut down, these characters are not LGBT, it was just a joke all along, and I just find that's a really big shame. Again, it's a way that the game is showing its age, and I didn't expect that. I didn't get it was supposed to be a joke in the first game, it just seemed legit. Oh. Episode 3. I gotta say, I really, really lost interest in the game around here. This chapter is so long, it's got Act 1 to 3 and then Act 1 to 3 Part 2, and it's around this big, confusing area. At first I was wow, it's cool, they got a big world map and everything, and now I'm just it makes everything so much harder to find. You gotta run around, click on absolutely everything to find the one thing that's a pickup of what you do next, and you go next, and you go where, and you go this. Once again, like so many games in the marathon, it's didn't do it in the right order syndrome. The exact sort of thing, like in the first episode, I was like, I'm relieved we're having a point-and-click adventure which doesn't have that, and I spoke too soon. I ended up just getting burned out and then like taking a few months not playing and then coming back. It took me 5 months to get through this one particular chapter. And it's not even super long. It's like, 3 or 4 hours, but it's just so mind-numbingly boring. It also doesn't help that using the mouse control system makes you run slower. There's no way to do shift to toggle running faster when you're also using the mouse. If you hold it down when you're using the mouse, it doesn't seem to work. So I would have to like switch over to keyboard when I walk and then switch over to mouse when I wanted to select anything, and it was just really annoying. It also didn't help that it felt that the story was kind of going nowhere. We've been in a phase of setting up future things for like 2 games now. You're now looking for Gale's father, who's gone missing on this random place. When you get there, you do a whole bunch of other quests, meet a bunch more people. There's like factions of the rebellion, there's 2 rebel drug cartels, there's the monkey racing circuit. It's really hard to tell, like, some of this stuff never comes up again, it just exists to be a puzzle that gets in your way, and some of it, I guess, is going to be important later. Anyway, after fucking around with side quests for 6 entire acts, you abruptly find your dad in the end in, like, an underground laboratory, and he's like, the Strata Mining Company has been covering up, but they killed the local life forms of this planet, and me and my new mad scientist girlfriend have been rescuing them, and you get, like, about 5 minutes of this plot before it then goes, and now, chapter end, will be concluded in the 4th one. You've got recaptured by the villain guys from the first one, and you're going to go on trial for something or other. And I don't know how much of what we saw is actually relevant to anything. Kind of as the series is going on, they're kind of devolving the NPCs into being less and less relevant or interesting or memorable, and more just being like negative stereotypes of various groups. I found it really weird because the first game had a black character and nobody made any jokes about him, but in this one we have like a really racially sensitive Arabic character. He's just kind of like, hello, I am Arabic man, I say things in broken English, oh, I run a shop where I give people bad deals and scam them all, ha ha ha, funny. Oh, why is he the only character? Why is this the one race in the universe you've decided to be racist against? It's so weird because you're meant to sympathise with that guy and help him get a date. And the way that they write him, it feels like the writers don't have sympathy for him, and it's very strange. You have to help him get a date with this nice grandma lady who I didn't really like it because her personality is just stereotype of grandma and person who wants a good man, blah blah blah. Everyone's kind of just boiled down to the base archetypes and nothing more. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to help her get a date. No, I didn't want to help trick her into getting a date, which is what you actually have to do. You talk to her and you find out what she wants in a man, and instead of the most logical thing, which is just walking over to the Arabic man who has a crush on her, telling him what she likes in a man, encourage him to like walk over to her and ask her out. No, instead you have to do a big long string of ridiculous fetch quests, trick her into thinking he is giving her all the gifts she wants, instead of just asking him to give her the gifts she wants. You get this from here, you get this from there, you steal this from there, you get this from a vending machine, blah blah blah, you find this in a box, and then you deliver it all to her with a fake letter saying it comes from him. And you don't even tell him you're doing this, so he has no idea you're doing this. From his perspective, he just turned around and said, hey, do you want a date? Out of nowhere. And he's just happy about that. But I can't feel happy about this relationship being established on complete lies, because it's obviously going to fall apart in 5 seconds. Oh, thank you so much for the chocolates. He's going to be like, what chocolates? Immediately they break up. And it made me sad because I wanted these characters to be happy, and I think they would actually be a good couple if they actually communicated. It's also a bit weird how sometimes they throw out an idea in the chapter and they just like immediately take it back for the next chapter. In this, as well as I think I mentioned before of a teenager guy just being removed off screen. Also, I didn't mention, in the second game they briefly give you a sassy talking AI for the ship, and I guess that just wasn't very popular because the first thing you get in the first cutscene in the third game is, oh, by the way, we uninstalled that character, and I feel kind of sad for them. I mean, they were indeed annoying and pointless, and that's why I didn't mention them, but it's gotta suck to be literally erased from existence because you're a boring character. I did like, in theory, the idea that you play as the 2 characters separately going on their own different adventures. It was nice to see how they came back together. I ended up enjoying Sabina's part more, which you're trapped in an airport waiting room, you have to like go around doing little side quests for all the various NPCs around there and figuring out, like, slowly piecing things together to be able to get her ultimate goal, which was to sneak Emmett into the cargo hold and through. Most of the characters were very boring and unmemorable, but I did find it nice how in the end everything sort of came together. And it's nice to see the weird Arabic grandpa and not very personality grandma get together, even if I think they're probably doomed to fail 5 seconds after the game ends. I also like the continuing running joke of every crate having an incredibly unlikely cargo inside actually paid off in this game. Part of what Sabina has to do has to make a deal with this big business mogul to get some money to do some other stuff for the next quest, and he ends up actually buying these. I thought it was really fun to have an Easter egg actually play into the plot like that. Another bit of this chapter having way more problematic of its time jokes is, at one point you've got to get into the men's bathroom to do some kind of like drug smuggling deal to get this parcel. There's a joke of, haha, you try and sneak in by saying, oh, I don't subscribe to your outdated concepts of gender, and the guy is like, haha, no, that's shit, you're just faking it to get in. It's like, haha, yeah, I am just faking it to get in, lol, I need to go around and find like an actual solution. It just felt weird to have a game that came out before like non-violent people were even accepted, just randomly having a strike against like the general concept. I guess from the perspective it's probably, oh haha, those feminists saying blah blah blah, don't assume my gender. I don't know. Whatever the intention was here, it was just very cringe. The first thing that came and got me excited again was the Colonel from Chapter 1, Captain Awesome Uncle Dadman is back for approximately 5 minutes. You sort of vaguely talk to him, you help him get out of prison, he helps you on one of the many side quests. You don't really talk much or learn much about him except he had a bad time working in a grocery shop and he may have made and lost a girlfriend, I guess. Anyway, you bust him out of his cell and you say goodbye again. You also say goodbye to Emmett and the bald religious lady. They've gone off to work with this rebellion faction. You meet a pirate and have to get a boat from him. You have to infiltrate a bar by wearing what the game describes as a hussy dress. You have to pretend to be a nurse to get into hospital, and that is the worst fucking part of the game. You get the nurse uniform and you think you could just go to the hospital, but no, you get there and it's like, no, I can't change clothes here, it would be improper, and you have to backtrack all the way back to like the first area of the place, to your hotel room, and that's the only place you're allowed to change clothes. Like you can't like change in the back alley or change in the shelter, which is now your current home base. You're not even in that hotel room anymore. You were literally living in the shelter. And then after that, you still can't go to the hospital. You can go to the hospital, they recognise you as a nurse, they let you upstairs, and then you just go, oh, I have no reason to go in the hospital, I won't go in the hospital. Even though you've got 99% of going to the hospital, you actually had to, while wearing the nurse uniform, go into the shady bar with the two factions of drug lords and talk to them while wearing a nurse uniform, and then you'll find out that one of the survivors of their attack of the package that they got Sabina to sneak into the thing to blow up the other guy, it might actually be like the guy in the faction has caused it to frame the other faction for it, and it's really confusing, but for some reason you have to be wearing the nurse uniform to overhear this important knowledge, and one of the people they tried to assassinate is in the hospital, then you have to go back to the hospital, and now you can actually go in the hospital. And then you talk to the person in the hospital, here's a code for a secret file which will expose that the guy is secretly working against his own faction to frame them, and he tried to kill me, and then you can't go to Strata HQ where she says the file is, you have to go to the secondary Strata building in the mining district, and then once you go in there, nothing has changed, nothing you talk to, nobody you talk to will do anything. What you actually have to do is walk over to the one door that's closed, and you click on it, and it goes, oh, I can't open this, maybe I should talk to Jojo in the workers' bar and he'll open it for me. You can't talk to Jojo in the workers' bar and ask him to open it for you until you have clicked on this door to determine that you can't open the door. If you clicked on this door any time earlier in the entire quest, it also doesn't give you anything. I had no idea I had to click on this door, which I clicked on before and I already knew there was nothing on it. Then he tells you you need a bunch of parts to get this disrupted, to get this door open, to get these things, to get this proof, to prove that the guy is corrupt, to get the stuff from the first guy in the first place. In order to get these parts, you have to click on a random crate outside a random building, and it will sneak you in to get past the guards, to get into this place which has the pulse thing that you needed, and I don't know how anyone was meant to figure this out. Then you move a robot to block a door, to get back out, to get this pulse amplifier, to get to the guy who can build a thing, to open the door, to get to the files you need, to enter the password you had like 20 minutes ago if you still remember it. Make sure you screenshotted that. I didn't screenshot that. To get the proof, to get the stuff you need, to go back to the guy, to prove that the guy was against his own team and he was setting this all up, to go back to the colonel, and then you still have to figure out how to get the colonel out of the prison. It's just, the entire chapter is a long string of fetch quests to get to one goal. That's what every act of the game has become now. It's just, you told you have to do one basic ass thing, and it takes the entire game to get there. Well, you have to remember so much shit. The same problem I had with Sacred Tears True. Run around and click on literally everything, including things that you thought couldn't be clicked on, to find the one obscurely hidden place you can use the one fucking item. And it gets a lot more frustrating how sometimes you have to use items in different ways in different places. Like sometimes you just click on it, sometimes you use it from the inventory, sometimes you combine it, sometimes you have to be standing in the right place in the room and then use it in the inventory. There is so much just like, it's not time to use that yet. Well, I'm standing directly exactly in the place where they told me to use it, but I didn't predict the developer's mind enough. It sucks so much that I'd fallen from adoring the first game to this is exactly what I expected the first game would be and why I wasn't optimistic going into it. Random good things. Emmett's disguise is pretty cool, actually. I don't really see how this is going to make him pass as a human, though. He honestly looks like he's from Final Fantasy XIV. But it's nice to see how all the little side quests came together in the end and were able to help you out and you helped them out. There's also another side plot I didn't mention of another grandpa who's just like, oh, I'm old, I don't believe in unions. Oh, my daughter is such a nag with her feminine emotions telling me to go to the doctor and stuff. And then you just resolve it by like finding literal proof that the company is indeed like making him mine like space asbestos and they're the reason he's sick. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll change my entire worldview and suddenly be nice to my daughter now. And I guess, there you go. Again, I'm happy for them, but it doesn't feel like you've made any permanent solution to the problem. I also was relieved that the cyclical nature of your relationship with Sabine finally made some kind of progress. It felt like maybe she would stop being such an arsehole and then just went back to half funny arsehole for the next 2 games, and it would keep going, like, by the end she would learn a lesson and she'd just go back at the start. But then we finally had this good, open conversation about it, and it seems she might genuinely have, like, empathy issues. It's not just her being an arsehole on purpose. This is a person who might have a real disability that exists in real life. I personally am happy to see that. I do just kind of wish it was established a bit earlier. I would be way more invested in seeing an actual story about someone struggling with a relatable condition and learning how to communicate correctly with people than just, oh, all our characters are mean to each other because funny. It also touched my heart a lot. She went back and rescued Zubar the ship cat after she was the one who hated him the most in the first chapter. It's great to finally see what seems like some growth from Sabina, and it's weird how it took until the very end of chapter 3 to get here. They also keep putting this shippy dialogue for them, and I don't know how I'm supposed to take it because the game has directly had them say, no, we're not gay, and it's supposed to be a joke, but I just, like, it seems genuine and sweet, and I don't know if it's meant to be like they're in denial, or if it is just, whoops, we accidentally made good lesbian representation while trying to mock it. Anyway, you briefly visit a room with all her really adorable space alien collection. I'm personally very attached to the weird leech on a giant leg thing, which is apparently harmless, and I want to give it a hug. Gail personally thinks that the banana yellow giraffe bug is the cutest, and good taste, good taste. The only one we actually get to interact with is this friendly, like, supersonic pulse-emitting crocodile with 1,000 legs, and I really love this sprite, and I wonder where that came from. Oh, also, there's a random glitch. You can walk up this one wall. Speaking of glitches, also making this video is weirdly cursed. I still have no idea why, but this is the only time ever in like over 1,000 hours of using Movie Studio 14 Platinum, a video just refused to render and could not give me an error. It would constantly get up to 14% and then just quit. The weirdest thing is that even though I tried to solve it by like playing the video and recording it with like screen capture and editing that back in and then trying to render that, and even when I did that, even when there was literally no files from the original video present in the project folder, it still stopped at precisely 14% and crashed. It was bizarre. And then it worked fine when I started a new project and just like put the same thing there and then rendered it. I don't know what happened except the universe itself was trying to tell me don't play chapter 4. Months later I found out what happened. For no apparent reason, again after years and years of using this program and nothing else changing on my computer, this program has just suddenly decided that it doesn't want to do like 1980 like resolution. Every other project I had that was already in that resolution also started crashing and not rendering. I'd like scale everything down to like the next lowest resolution, the 1200 by 720, and then it was just fine. So anyway, that's the reason why the first half of this video is probably a different resolution to the rest. There you go. Solved! Except I still don't know why it happened in the first place. I've also found that there was an earlier beta version of the game that was freeware. It seems it was only episode 1, the title was slightly different. It was not Space Pilgrim, it was just Pilgrim, episode 1, Proxima Centauri. Instead I think Alpha Centauri is the final one. Unfortunately, there are no remaining images here, and I couldn't find anything on Wayback or Archive.org. But from the description we have here, it seems that the events would be the same as what happened in the final version, and it was still planned to be 4 episodes at this point. Honestly confused why it was removed, because it says here it's removed, so it's removed because it's going to be commercial release, but then the final release, episode 1 was free, and only episodes 2, 3, and 4 were actually commercial, so I feel like they could have just left the demo up here, because like the demo is also on there, but I guess there must be more differences in this compared to the like the episode 1 demo we actually got. I would be intrigued to find out, but I can't find any other traces anywhere, not even a single screenshot. Anyway, on to the rest. Episode 4. I am recording this so many months after the last one. I've gone to the stage of like full on dreading playing this. It's just 2 whole games in a row of getting increasingly worse every time, and like all the things I liked from the first one are just gone now. I did still keep hoping like maybe the final one goes out with a bang, but then I'm recording this currently as of only finishing Act 1. And it was so bad that I then stopped and didn't play again for a bunch more months. I will eventually finish it, but right now I'm only doing that because I want to finish this video. I've already put too much effort into it. The plot this time is you're now being put on trial by like the evil, corrupt government for all the supposed crimes you did, which were actually caused by all the villains of the previous ones. And I thought that was a cool premise, and then the whole first act is just not about that at all, and it's more random busy work. Before you get kidnapped and taken to the trial, there's like a prologue with like a mini extra act. Why is it becoming longer every time, where you're just sort of sitting around the ship and Sabina is like, okay, yeah, I'll talk to you about what we're going to do next, but only after you do these several random chores which have no relevance to anything. Replace light bulb, find duct tape to fix a wire, there are rats in the cargo hold, and you will take an extremely long time to find the exact correct order of things to do to get rid of the rats, because like, I've taken the cat to the rats. Why is the cat not exterminating the rats? Anyway, and the reason you've got to do all that is because you have travel sickness, and you have to wait a certain amount of time for like the travel sickness remedy to come to the boil on the kitchen. And you just walk out of the kitchen and leave the saucepan boiling and don't look at it. It will never ever stop until you go and finish these arbitrary chores, and Sabina will never talk to you until you get your travel sickness remedy. Even though the entire time you're doing all the chores, your protagonist is talking out loud, and it's like the entire conceit that, oh, I can't have a conversation because I'm too sick and I'm going to throw up. It doesn't work. It's really like, why? Anyway, we get past that. You get like a few scenes of like, oh cool, we're going into the trial. Oh, it's like a fixed evil trial. Oh no, and then they're sending you off to like temporary detention in the prison. And like after that one scene of actually advancing the plot, you're now in a prison and you do a bunch of other shitty chores for no particular reason. And it's just the only good thing I can give it is like it's at least interesting and unique to explore like the setting of an all-female prison, because that's a really weird thing I've noticed in media. Is it's really rare to ever actually see like female prisons anywhere, let alone like seeing them depicted as like it's a prison, it's just as bad as a man's prison. There's always this idea of like, oh, women are less criminals somehow. It's a weird trope, like, oh, the women's bathrooms must be perfectly clean and smell of lavender. That's just not true. I don't know if it's just a difference between like the UK and the US. Maybe they do actually have magical feminine bathrooms, but over here they're equally as full of like piss and shit stains and awful maintenance everywhere as anywhere else. The women's bathroom specifically in London Paddington Station is the worst I have ever been to in my life, and there was no unisex option to flee to. It was like walking into a jungle. It was literally humid from how much piss stench there was. But anyway, I don't want to gross you guys all out, but just, yeah, in short, the stereotype of like women will be less bad at so and so, glad we're avoiding that. It's just nice to like, here is just a standard Prison Break kind of plot with all the same crazy evil criminal characters, but they're girls this time. That was the only bit of credit I could give to it, because otherwise it is just, here is the same standard boring Prison Break plot. It hasn't even gotten to like breaking out of the prison yet. It was literally just like, okay, we need to like, here's the biggest ones in the yard, and we've got to like ally ourselves with these two like warring factions and pit them against each other and blah 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 to be able to survive. It's literally like here are all your random quests in order to get to like, just go to bed tonight without getting beaten up. There's like a bunch of murders. There's like the evil cult wants to rebuild a radio with like a bird bell on it, and that one really got me, because it's even more fallen into like the massive pit of just why I really dislike like a lot of games in this genre. It's just, there is no puzzle to solve. There is no way you could have figured this out. You just have to slap random things against each other until one of them coincidentally works. You have to find the bird bell by like picking up something which looks like a cup, and the character describes as, oh, that's probably a cup. And then it turns out that's like an upside down bell where the jingling thing inside the bell has fallen out, and it only works if you think everyone in the universe has like pixel vision to this exact sprite style. A bell and a cup are not the same shape or the same material. And just the fact that the sprite art was so bad that you could just turn it upside down, it looks like something else. I guess it's a meta joke on that particular, like, default asset pack, but it really bugged me. It stumped me for so long. I hated this chapter so much, and it took me so long to get through this incredibly long string of random fetch quests back and forth, that, okay, from every chapter from now on, I'm just going to be reading a guide from the start. I'm just going to follow the steps in a guide. I'm not even going to try and solve this on my own, because there is no way I can solve this on my own. It's not based in logic. I don't understand why this is supposed to be, like, a good thing for the genre. Like, wouldn't you like to solve puzzles that are solvable? Wouldn't you like to in any way challenge your mind? What is the point of just, oh, slap, 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 30 things against each other over and over again? Okay, these two randomly work. And there's no in-universe reason why. It's just, it's a joke. It's a joke. The only time I've ever seen it ever actually work is, like, apparently in one of Monkey Island games you can make, like, a monkey wrench by combining a monkey and a wrench. I'm like, okay, that's at least funny. There was a way to solve that puzzle. It was a joke. But when it's just, like, there is no way to solve the puzzle, it is just, haha, two random things, and that's the joke? I don't get it. Anyway, mini rant over. You just do all that, and then you go to bed. The chapter. Oh, and along the way there's just a random trope like, ooh, the scary, predatory lesbian who wants to rape all the women. And this is the first, like, canonically confirmed gay character, as opposed to just Sabina making a bunch of jokes of, ooh, maybe I'm lesbian, maybe I'm not, haha. And yeah, I'm just tired. This was the most chapter of every character is just some kind of joke of this minority bad. And I have no clue what's happening next time, but it is approximately 5 months after I finished playing that, and it's taken me this long to even record talking about it. I'll get back to you once I've finally done the rest. For the love of God, I hope this game does actually get a good ending. Even if it did, my review is still going to be, it was not worth all of this to get there. Future Bond now, it took 6 months actually to continue playing. I played this in January. It is now July. So this episode in particular is going to have more of a segmented review. I'm going to be going, like, not necessarily chapter by chapter, but every couple of chapters whenever I come back and have the motivation to continue. Sorry if it's a little disorganised. First I'm going to start with stuff I missed out from the previous chapter. I was so fried, I didn't even realise I hadn't put any of my screenshots in the footage. As I was playing, I took screenshots. Here are the parts, the notable parts that I should show, and I didn't, so here they are. The prison station looks cool. An incredibly insensitive way of saying, here's the gendered rooms. Obviously all of this is meant to be a joke. He's a prison guard. He's meant to be an arsehole. So hey, I'll give the game a positive point for this. You've successfully made me feel uncomfortable, which was the goal. It's mildly interesting to get a unique costume for the prologue and then immediately change into prison uniforms. Generally, as the series has gone on, we've had more costume changes per game. Brief appearance of funny cult guy in this random dream sequence Gale has of regretting stuff. I also find it funny that in her nightmare she's wearing the red quote-unquote slutty dress that she hated. It did clash a bit though. We have that funny note in what's otherwise a kind of scary scene. And really sad you also briefly see Emmett's cool grandpa dad. But yeah, that was all pointless, it was just a nightmare. One of the bad guys from the first chapter, way back in the random RPGmaker, back when I was enjoying this game, got arrested and ended up here in prison. Understandably, she doesn't want to cooperate with you, but she isn't also really a big enemy and doesn't have a huge role in this chapter, so she's probably not going to come up again. I like that one random NPC has a wheelchair. I think that she might be one of the people who was on Emmett's grandpa dad guy's base, one of the soldiers, but I do have trouble telling faces apart, so I don't know. Honestly, a disappointment. I didn't like the grandma who runs the prison is like the secret, like, smuggler one who gets all the drugs and stuff. I mean, like, she's a grandma, but she's not a nice grandma. She's an evil grandma. It's like, oh, comparatively speaking, she's less evil than the other evil ones. It's all about different evil factions doing evil things. I just don't find it interesting, sorry. But her design is cool, at least. I also, like, I did laugh at this joke, and then I immediately went, I don't get this joke. Gale finds a pamphlet on the desk. Conversations with God. How to turn away from crime and accept Christ message shop, personal savior. Underneath it is a Quran. Mixed messages, if you ask me. No, it's not, because they're both stopped being a criminal by joining a certain religion. They're clearly both in the same genre of things. I don't really get the joke. Like, I would have got the joke and laughed if the joke was just, oh, and then there's another religious pamphlet, and then there's another religious pamphlet. Oh, they're really covering all their bases or something. Like, I agree, the concept of having both of these things here is funny, but this particular phrasing of it, I just don't get it. Maybe I'm just taking it too literally. Randomly canonized that Sabina is bi, at least. I guess Gale just doesn't reciprocate. Honestly, this game would be better if they were a couple. I'm kind of getting annoyed how much the game is teasing me with the idea of it, and I know it's not going to come true. And now back with Chapter 1, Part B, which is basically just Chapter 2. Like, essentially 2 full chapter-length sections, but one is in Gale's perspective, one is in Sabina's perspective. I continue to like the idea of switching between them and doing different things and getting different flavor text, but it's making the game kind of long and annoying. Anyway, general summary for what happens here. You go around and do a bunch more arbitrary fetch quests again. They're at least mostly more intuitive this time. There was nothing I really got stumped on. I have still fully given up and I'm just using the guide anyway, but I'm like, yeah, nothing here I really needed the guide for. I'm just doing it because I want to get through this game as fast as possible. You get a message from Emmett saying that he's back and he's trying to break you out of prison. You gotta find out who stole some cigarettes from the smuggler grandma. I can't remember if it was this one or the previous chapter where you have to do random gambling. Jojo is here? Does anyone remember Jojo? I didn't remember Jojo. He's the guy who was in, like, the previous game and didn't do anything except fixed some stuff for you, and the game felt like, oh, is he supposed to be a love interest? I don't really get it. And at the end of a chapter they give you a dramatic choice. Do you want to save Jojo or do you want to save Ashanti? And I'm like, I barely remember who Ashanti is after picking this game up after several months, and I still want to save him more than Jojo, who just has no traits and barely exists in the game. So anyway, I picked Ashanti. Apparently this is an actual branching choice in the game, and somehow it'll affect something or other. I am most likely not going to reload my save and go back and pick Jojo because, well, one, I don't care about Jojo. He's possibly on the bottom tier list of all the characters. He's got less presence than the random stereotype NPCs. I can remember at least one thing about them, and two, I don't really care about unlockables or anything. I just want this experience to be over. So unless by not picking boring heterosexual man I've been locked into the bad ending, I'm probably not going to go back. And then you successfully do all the fetch quests and get saved, and Emmett is like, hello, I am back, I have a new character design, I have a funky eye, I've reprogrammed my brain to be less emotional because I couldn't stand the trauma of what happened, and I'm inefficient by being soft, which contradicts in the previous chapter they did say, I am programmed to never feel depression, blah blah blah. But anyway, he was also with your dad, they've teamed up to save you, they upgraded your ship, and your dad says, it's time I finally tell you the secret lore about your mother, and then that's when the next chapter starts. So anyway, the very small amount of things I found noteworthy in this chapter. The arsehole grandma said this line, it's a bit funny. She normally puts on such a, like, diplomatic businesswoman, oh, I'm so trustworthy kind of voice, so it was just funny to see her snap. Oh, this part of the guide confused me, because it says look for the tan-skinned girl, and that's clearly a black woman. That's the one you're actually meant to talk to. It's a recurring problem throughout the entirety of the guide. It constantly says tan-skinned when it means black, and, like, there actually are tanned characters in the game, so clarity would have been appreciated. The game just keeps teasing with the idea that they could possibly be a couple and just keeps saying no. It's at the point, like, by now I'll be equally pissed off if they do make it canon or if they don't. Like, obviously if they just put all this stuff in as a tease for no reason, just as a joke, that's just annoying. But if they put all that stuff in just at the very last minute to go, oh, by the way, yeah, you actually are a lesbian, you were just in denial, then what was the point of all those shitty jokes I had to endure my way through? Anyway, Simone finds that Gale's been writing seemingly romantic poetry about her while locked up in solitary, and Gale just jokes back like, well, I was going crazy in solitary, I can't be held responsible for my actions, why would I ever do something like that? It does at least give me hope that maybe Gale is indeed just in denial and that's the excuse for all the shitty jokes. Probably more like the developer realised that, like, the fandom did like the ship and didn't want the shitty jokes, and this is a way of, like, retconning it back, maybe? I don't know how things happen between games, but having a few moments where I'm like, okay, they just clearly retconned a thing that was supposed to be something else, so were they responding to player feedback? Like, the whole thing, like, the sassy AI voice suddenly got disabled between games. Introducing a character only to immediately get rid of them in, like, less than 5 minutes in-universe just seems quite transparently like, oh, we saw everyone hates them, so they're just gone now. And this part of the guide had incorrect instructions. You'll notice here it says, go to the right cell, cell 2, and then go to intake. You can't get to the intake from the cell, and it doesn't mention at all that you're rescuing Gale right here. What you actually do is you go into the cell, you rescue Gale, and then you go back through several other rooms to get to the room called intake. And because it doesn't tell you which rooms to go to get there, and you haven't been to intake since the very start of going into the prison, like 2 parts of the story away now, you've done A and B, these very long sections of Gale and Sabine. I didn't remember where intake was, I was running around the whole place to find it. And if this guide had just put extra step here, it would have helped a lot. Oh, and in addition to the choice of choosing Ashanti and Jojo, you also have this like morally ambiguous thing, like in order to escape, the only reason why we can't take both of them is we had to promise to this evil serial killer lady that we'd let her escape too, because she was like vitally necessary for our plan, because she just had a shank that we used in one scene to stab a guy, even though you'd already notably picked up a broken nail file which was sharp, which you used to unscrew a screw, which theoretically could have been used in the same function. But anyway, we totally needed that one single shank so much that we're going to free a serial killer and therefore be forced to sacrifice one of our friends, aka Ashanti, the NPC lady that's been helping us for the entirety of these 2 chapters, or Jojo, the fuckhead from 2 chapters ago who's done basically nothing. It's not much of a choice. And the characters also don't really remark very much on the moral dilemma of we've had to free a serial killer. It really is just, well, that is a thing you have to do, moving on. And also the serial killer is kind of completely trustworthy and never betrays you. Maybe she will in the future chapter. I feel like the better way you could have done this choice is like, either you agree to take the serial killer or you don't, and then things would change because of that. Like, even if you made it a knock-on effect, like, if you agree to take the serial killer, she will serial kill, stab someone who otherwise would have killed a character, and then if you don't agree to take it, you have enough room to take 2 characters, but one character will die because the serial killer wasn't there to stop it, and that way you'd still have a choice, but it would be more like consequences of your actions rather than just, at the last minute, choose which character you would like to not have, and I would like to not have Jojo. And speaking of what I was saying about characters just vanishing when like they're not liked or not important, at the end the dad says, oh, by the way, I broke up with my science lady girlfriend off screen and we're never going to see her again. Like, again, right after she was introduced, right at the very end of the previous chapter. But the thing that wouldn't make sense is I can't imagine why she would be unpopular because she was cool. But I have to remember that most people don't like mad scientists the way I do. And leaving on a downer that Emmett has become a crappier character, that's this chapter. But I'm not too broken up about it. I'm assuming we'll be able to fix him later on. This is going to be a temporary arc for his character. Next chapter. You all go down to the rebellion base where Emmett and your dad work together. You meet the colonel guy again for 5 seconds. You fuck around doing some chores here too. But at least these chores are towards a goal that you actually care about, kind of, is fixing what Emma has done to his brain and restoring his original personality. Along the way, Gale learns that the true secret of her long-lost mother is that she had the disease, and has been sent to the facility. And oh no, you might also have the disease, which makes you go crazy. And Gale has, like, prophetic visions, which may or may not be supernatural, or might be the disease. And then, it's time for the final battle. Okay, I actually started recording this time while I'm still in the middle of playing through Act 2, because I got to a point where maybe, okay, I have to record this now, but I'll get my other thoughts out of the way of the other screenshots I've taken. First of all, I do find it nice and cool, repeatedly returning to the same location, your ship, seeing little details change throughout the story, little running jokes coming back, little things you never expected would come back, have a little bit of a change, like, oh yeah, that broken thing in the corner's finally been fixed. I never would have thought of that. It's nice. It adds a lot of, like, verisimilitude to the world. It gives a sense that things are actually progressing in the chapters, even though the story doesn't. I have no complaints about the environment design. I feel kind of bad that, like, I'm here digging for compliments. I'm just like, the house is nice. But yeah, it is genuinely good. Like, I like this. I would recommend other games to try doing it. Just even the little notes, like, every time we go to this particular dorm room, the graphics are the same, but if you click on the cupboard next to it, it'll say different things are in that cupboard depending on who's currently staying in your crew at the time. I would go so far to say as, I care more about the flavor text than I do about the main story. Really complimenting them on that. And then something that made me immediately kind of pissed off is Ashanti mysteriously like, I'm so torn up that you would pick me instead of Jojo. Jojo was like the best guy ever. You really should have picked Jojo. How could I, a mere like trained soldier who's incredibly good at defending your family, be possibly better than Jojo? Like, yeah, Jojo technically has a strength. Like, he was just a guy who fixed stuff in general in his first appearance. Later on, they established he's like a super engineer and he can program ships and things like that. But then you didn't actually need that because your dad and Emmett upgraded the ship anyway. So it's like picking between someone who could do a thing that we don't need because we already have several crew members that could already do it versus cool retired soldier lady who helped us throughout the entirety of that chapter and the previous chapter. And I'm just like, come on, Gabe. This really does reek of, like, we realise nobody cares about Jojo, let's just have the characters say Jojo is great. Don't you feel bad for abandoning Jojo now? No, I do not. Oh, also, it's just been thrown out that, apparently Ashanti had a crush on Jojo and that's why she's sad he's gone. I didn't pick up on that at all in, like, all the interactions they had. It might just be me being oblivious because I'm an aromantic ace person. I can tell if it's like a vibe between characters, like if it's like a friendship vibe that could work into a ship, or if it's like really obvious shipping tropes, I can get that. I'm not totally oblivious to all love ever. Whatever's going on here was evidently a more subtle display and I didn't get it. Either that or they really did just retcon this. And then the thing that made me go, okay, I have to pause to talk about this immediately. The big secret of your mother is she had the disease with the precise exact symptoms that will do exactly what we needed to happen for the plot. She had seizures that made her slip into the nightmare world and she couldn't tell the nightmare world was real. It's really strange to have a doctor talking about and then she fell into the nightmare world. It's a really strange way for a professional to be phrasing this, but yeah, basically your mum had a condition, the condition, unspecified condition, which precisely works in a way where you will have seizures and go into nightmares, and it will get worse after pregnancy, and oh no, she didn't know she had it until after she had the baby, so having the baby made her go irrecoverably insane forever, and that's the big, dramatic, sad angstiness. Oh, Gail, don't you feel so sad that you being born caused your mother to go insane forever, and oh, maybe you'll go insane forever too. We did have that one random nightmare sequence out of nowhere in the previous chapter. At least that means one thing was actual foreshadowing. It wasn't just a boring fetch quest. But yeah, to add to the unprofessionality of this, oh, your wife may look like the same woman, but she's not the same anymore because she's crazy. Like, in the context of the rest of the conversation, he's saying in the cautionary tone, like, don't think she's still the same woman. You can't just look away from this. You have to put her in a facility now. She can never get better. I'm trying not to judge it as, like, an intentional ableist depiction. It is more just a plot holist depiction. Like, this has to work in this exact way for this exact plot to happen. She has to have the thing which will suddenly happen in this exact circumstance, and she never knew it was going to happen before it happened, and when it happens it's 100% absolutely the worst ever and she can never recover, so we can have the maximum amount of angst from all the characters. Yeah, I had to pause for a second because this just made me so like, ugh. And also, this is the point where I realised, oh, we are never going back to the interesting idea of being put on trial for all our actions in the previous chapters. Half of chapter 1 was about that, and you never actually get judged on any of the things you actually did. It's just a rigged trial, or even they say you did things you didn't do. I got all my hopes up because the whole description of this chapter on Steam was saying it's about the cool trial, and the cool trial's over in 5 seconds, and it wasn't a cool trial. It was just a plot point to get you in that prison, to do all those chores to get out of that prison. Have enough time pass that your dad has made all these changes off screen, and now we can have the big revelation where he just tells you the thing he could have told you before if you weren't locked up inside a prison for several chapters. Like, genuinely, they grab you and they put you in trial, they lock you in a prison right after you meet your dad, and he's like, I'm gonna tell you the thing about your mother, and then he doesn't, and then You're out. I'm going to tell you the thing about your mother. Was this whole thing just filler and I got my hopes up for nothing? That would have been such a good idea, though, for like the final chapter of a big multi-chapter series to go like, we've remembered all your choices and you'll have to face up to different challenges based on what you picked. If it's not going to be used in this series, I hope some series out there in the world has this idea. It would have been really cool. Oh, bloody come on. It's like, immediately as soon as you code, I have to start recording again. Immediately, I put your mother in the facility for 30 years. She was so totally, completely, utterly gone, instantly in an instant after she gave birth to you. All the crazy hit her at once, and I had to abandon her completely to the facility, and I had to never tell you because I was just protecting you from the truth. It's too sad. She's not the woman I knew anymore. There's no way she can ever recover, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just come on, man. This is such an outdated view. This really is, like, in the 1800s, oh, just put them in the asylum. You know that they had to be like, oh, it's the syndrome, it's the condition, because if they named any real-life one, people would know. There are other ways to treat this, and this would be a horrible thing to do in real life for any other condition. Also, just phrasing it as like, oh, if she was still the woman I knew, she would never have chosen to abandon you. Like, she hasn't abandoned you. She's just sick, and you abandoned her in the facility. I really hate the framing. People go, oh, your mother abandoned you by, like, dying or getting really sick or something. It's like, the phrasing abandoned is so loaded, and of course a kid's going to be very sad when they hear that particular phrasing, as opposed to the reality is like, literally, yeah, your mother would never have abandoned you and didn't abandon you. She was torn away from you by circumstances that happened to her that were out of her control. I'm sorry, but I miss on the footage. The end of the conversation is, oh, by the way, Dad, what's Mum's name? So he hasn't even these years said, like, oh, your mum went away for a reason, and I won't tell you what the reason is or anything. It's just no, we're not going to talk about your mother at all for, like, 20 years of her life? This is terrible. Why are we framing this as a bonding moment with a dad? Oh, he's gone through so much trauma. Oh, thanks, Dad, I'm forgiving you now. Come the fuck on. Oh, by the way, the mum's name is Gail, and our protagonist is actually Gail the Second. Ooh, what a twist. I'm a little bit more through the chapter and taking another pause. It is getting harder and harder to play these every time. There have been some things that could have been interesting if done different, maybe. First one, thank you, now I'm getting some resolution to, for very tenuous reasons, having to let a serial killer onto our ship. She did just act, like, entirely friendly and, like, there was no problem for quite a while, and it was kind of funny. Like almost like the only way the developers could think of to make this surprising that she betrayed you is to just make her not act like herself for a short while. But yeah, she betrays you, and I got worried for a second because I walked out of the room after the big, oh, your mother is crazy and gone scene, and it was like, oh, there's a big blood stain on the floor and Ashanti is gone. I was like, I swear to God, if they're like, we killed Ashanti because you made the wrong choice, you should have picked Jojo, I would have been so mad. But no, Ashanti just briefly kidnapped by the evil serial killer lady. She's like, I'm holding her and also Sabina hostage until you do what I want. It's like, you're gonna fly down to my evil serial killer base with my other evil serial killer friends, and we're gonna steal your ship and go off to do serial killing. And while then we add in yet another dig of like every possible turn where they have shipping, it has to be, no, we're not girlfriends, we're not gay, even though one of us is canonically bisexual, you can't ship them together. Even the evil serial killer sees that they have chemistry. I really, really want this ship to get together now. I'm getting so stubborn every time you say no. Anyway, I did like the idea that the way you save them is the same way that you took down the evil cultist guy in the first chapter. That was a nice, cool callback, except this time the teleporter has been fixed and it won't risk accidentally killing someone. So you've got to do a totally different puzzle to activate it and get in there this time, and it wasn't very interesting because, again, we're at the point where like you just need a guide, there's no way you could figure out what to do. I got stumped on a bit where it's like, this is the only place in the game where to combine an item, you don't just go into the menu and go to the option that says combine items in the menu. You cannot combine this fuel cell and this wire in the combine option. Instead, you have to go over to the spot where you want to use them and click on it and click on the two items individually to put them down, and then Gale will automatically combine them in a cutscene. How was I meant to know that? Anyway, that brief diversion taken care of. I like this design for a spaceship again. And overall, these little zooms out on various spaceships with a slow scroll of this is where it is and this is what we're doing right now. They've been getting better every time. This one was animated, rotating a bit in like a slightly glitchy, pixely style, but still cool. It looked like an old DS game. It was nice. And then Gale has crazy nightmares of the crazy conditions she inherited from her crazy mum, and she visits her in the astral plane to talk to her, and it could have been an emotional moment. I love the metaphorical idea of like, and this dream is representing the fact that I want to fix Emmett and turn him back to his old personality, and then you see what the mum looks like, and it's the stereotypical crazy eyes that we had with the crazy priest. And it's strange because she speaks completely normal. She, cliche spiritual guide person. I'm so proud of you, Gale. Here's exactly what you need to do next. Here's the prophecies of the future. And it doesn't fit well with, well, she's crazy. She has to look like this, I guess. And also, I guess we're just going with the idea that the craziness truly is a magical nightmare realm where she is now trapped within and she can speak to us through dreams. I don't like how they just throw out a little token like, perhaps, no, this is a medical condition, and this is just a dream, and you're just remembering me, directly after a scene where we've been told that Gale does not remember her mother in any way, and the mother was gone literally at childbirth. So how would she be remembering the mum exactly how she looks? Like, is it supposed to be some sort of like subconscious memory when she was a newborn or something? I don't know. She wouldn't know how a mum would speak. She wouldn't be able to predict the bloody future of what's going to happen next. So this clearly is some kind of actual supernatural thing going on, and that just seems weird to throw out of nowhere at the end of your sci-fi series. Anyway, then we wake up and we have some more, oh, we're not girlfriends, blah. And then we get a Shanti going, I have realised that all along I was in love with Jojo, and you get an achievement. You made her fall in love with Jojo. I'm going to leave at the end of the chapter. And I'm like, seriously, did this choice not really matter? Would this have happened to whoever I picked? They just go at the end? Or is it only if I pick a Shanti? Now I kind of want to replay both versions to see what happens if you do get Jojo. If it was equal, if he also goes like, oh, I miss a Shanti so much, I've realised how much I love a Shanti, I'm also going to leave the party to go save a Shanti, that'd be fine. But the Steam achievement says you only get this achievement of them getting together if you picked a Shanti. I got my bloody hopes. I thought this was the cool mining droids from the first chapter, but no, it's just using the same asset pack. It's a different robot. It's another robot who was made by Emmett's dad and is like Emmett's cousin, I guess. Completely random moment where it just, how do you say this in Chinese? Phonetically says out how to say it in Chinese and not what the actual words are. So this is not how, I don't know if this is accurate to how you would pronounce whatever the words are for saying welcome to my spaceship in Chinese. It's an odd choice. Another little moment of the guide not being very helpful. It says go to quarters. Every single door in this corridor is labelled quarters. Quarters, talk to the man. Quarters, access the laptop. Quarters, talk to the man. These are all 3 different rooms. You have to go to these rooms in a very specific order, and it's just not here. And another moment, if I wasn't using the guide, I would have no idea what to do. The way to progress is to go into this one particular one of all the different quarters, and you will find a quarter in the back of the sofa. Except they didn't even go for that joke, we just go, it's 1 credit. Come on, guys. I can't even give them credit for that. Ba-dum-bum. Anyway, yeah, if you don't click on this one random unmarked object, you can't progress. There is a grumpy grandpa for approximately 3 seconds. I like his design, but it looks like a grumpy young man to me. But the characters say he's a grumpy grandpa. Unfortunately, he doesn't really have any role. He's just an asshole, and then you have to get past him to do something. You kind of ruin his day and, like, wreck one of his machines to steal a part from his droid, which means it won't function anymore. But it's required because you have to do all of this to cure Emmett of the being evil mind thing he did to himself. The cool colonel is here. Again, you only really talk to him for a few minutes. He's suddenly established to be sexist. I didn't really get that from the previous chapters. The only thing we really saw is he's a bit more religious, and that kind of hasn't come up again since then. You have to convince him to go get an infirmary checkup because he's a very sexist man, and sexist men think, oh, I don't need doctors. I still like him, even if he has flaws. Hopefully we'll see him more in the final chapter. You get a brief moment where you have to answer a bunch of philosophical questions from monks for no particular reason to pass time between the random chores. With this one, every single option you can pick is wrong, and he goes, ooh, truly the philosophical meaning is all 4 options actually were correct, even though I said they were wrong when you selected them individually. Blah blah blah, something something, we are all part of the cosmos, swoodly-doo, and everyone goes, wow, that's so deep, that really motivates us for our future conflict. And then I kind of like, and I kind of also don't like the resolution to curing Emmett. It's like, oh, we can't just cure him back to how he was before, because that'll continue the inevitable problem. He'll fall to depression again, and he'll seek to remove his chip and become emotionless again. So here's the problem, is that his grandpa dad programmed him with a too simplistic idea of good and bad, compared to the complexity of human beings. And we'll modify his chip to give him a different moral code where he can make choices that may be pragmatic, but not evil or good. I like the idea, in theory, but then I thought about it for a second, like, oh, so we're not curing Emmett back to who he was and giving him the choice of his own morality or anything. We're not freeing him from either being trapped in restrictive good morality or restrictive evil morality. We are just programming a new set of morality, and like, we don't know if this priest guy's definition of the correct amount of pragmatism is actually good or bad. This is just a guy we've just met. It says that he knew Emmett's dad, so he's probably trustworthy, but still, it raises a lot of questions. I would have liked the resolution was to be like, and we've given him a chip which just gives him full free will, it's up to him to decide, and Gale could have been like, oh, but wouldn't that mean he'll still do the horrible thing? And then they could be like, well, it's up to him to decide now. Do you trust in your friend Emmett? Do you think he would make the right choice? Yes, I do. And then the resolution. Oh, by the way, the reason why it's so tense and now we have to suddenly do this reprogramming like right now is because Emmett is about to execute the evil serial killer lady, and everyone acts like it's objectively wrong to execute the evil serial killer lady. And I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Killing is never right. I mean, I guess the idea is like keep her in prison, but I mean, she was in prison before and she escaped from prison and she immediately turned on us and tried to kill more people, so anyway, even if I'm not invested in that conflict, I appreciate the overall idea of like, okay, well, if he does this, if he kills someone he's justified to kill, will it continue escalating from there? Will his new, like, devoid of emotion programming be like, I'll find a way to justify killing anyone who's insufficient to my goals? That's an interesting idea. We should focus more on that rather than just, you know, I kind of would like to just launch her out the airlock after how much time she wastes. Oh, I didn't even remember to mention, when she kidnaps Ashanti and holds her hostage, she doesn't even use the shank that was so important to recruit her for that one shank. Instead, she uses a metal pipe she just found on the floor. I just found that a bit comical. And then, the one good thing about the chapter, the very end of a chapter, the lesbians are canon now. I will reiterate what I said before. I am still pissed off at this idea. You spend the entire game series giving great romantic chemistry between these two characters, and at every possible turn going, haha, no, funny, it can't possibly be that. And if your goal from the start was to make it be that anyway, and for them to just be in denial, it's like, why did you put me through all of that? Why did you fake me out thinking, oh, I'll just give up on hope of the ship I liked becoming canon? Anyway, it's canon. And also, this is why Jojo exists. He literally does only exist to be a heterosexual option if the player doesn't want to play as a lesbian. It's so stupid. I don't think you should have done that. I think if you did want to do it, you should just have established, like, another male character who has a significant impact on the plot. Because when your choices are between, oh, the deuteragonist of the entire series who's had constant romantic chemistry with you across 4 different games, and has been a major role in this entire chapter and every chapter before, and then just guy who fixes a machine once and may fix a machine twice if you chose to save him in this particular chapter. Half of one chapter hanging out with him versus 4 whole games. I think everyone, even heterosexual people, would probably pick to go with Sabina just because there's actual story to it. It's really strange. And also just kind of reeks of a lack of confidence in your own plot of writing lesbian characters. When you do make these decisions of at every possible turn, we will defang the lesbianism with jokes about it, and we'll throw in the token straight guy who just manifests into existence right before the lesbianism is about to happen, so you can pick him if you don't want it. I'm sorry developers, I do have to say, strange choice. Maybe if you just had Jojo appear earlier, do more stuff, because Jojo was introduced in game 2, like that could have been like 3 entire games worth of time you could hang out with him if he was like a permanent party member, and players would have been like, oh, I am invested in Jojo now. But no, instead he's only around as a minor part of someone else's side quest in chapter 2, and at the very end of chapter 3 you can choose to save him even though he just hasn't done anything. And then maybe in this chapter you'd have some time hanging out with him. I don't know, man. I'm glad I left him in the dust. I will have to go back now just to substantiate my claims about which things were good and bad. Is his route worse? I'm not looking forward to that. Even the characters lampshade the fact that there was no reason why they haven't just confessed their love before now, and why they've spent so long pretending they aren't. I mean, I guess the excuse is just they're both sassy characters. Ooh. And then it's honestly a really huge disappointment as someone who's been invested in this ship the whole time. They literally just have sex. That's all that happens. They don't actually say out loud they love each other or anything. It's just, why did you wait all of this time until we were at the brink of sudden death to say it? And then she doesn't say it. It's just like, stay with me a while in my room. I'm not even going to directly proposition you for sex. And then we just cut to them under the covers after the act has happened. And that is the end of a scene. They don't even really say very much lovemaking. It's just kind of like, oh, I don't want to get up and save the world right now. I'm having such a nice time together with you. And like, that's sweet. But then that's just the end of it. So it really was like an optional 20-second scene. And they didn't really talk about their feelings in any way. And then we just kind of roll into the next chapter as if nothing happened. But maybe we'll get more scenes later on now we've made our choice. Anyway, abruptly now, we're going to go fight the Jackals, the evil space cops, and have our final confrontation. This just kind of happens. You walk in, the Colonel tells you this is happening, and there we go. This whole game and this whole series, in fact, has just been fucking around doing side quests leading up to this moment. Jojo route changes. He immediately does not want to go rescue Ashanti. Well, Ashanti would never like me, and in fact, I have a crush on you! And I'm just like, again, it came less out of nowhere than the crush on Ashanti, because he does have a few, like, that's why I was like, oh, is he just a generic heterosexual man? 'Cause he had a few, like, kind of flirty dialogues in earlier chapters I didn't bother mentioning, because, like, I mean, he's so boring I didn't think he'd be important later. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's 100% just on his side and no sign of Gale reciprocating, so it is kind of strange. But, intriguingly, honestly, you actually get earlier foreshadowing of a lesbian option existing, because Jojo is like, hey, I'm gonna poke you, please finally notice that Sabine has a crush on you, you dumbass. And this genuinely made me appreciate him like 10 leagues more. I was like, oh, I didn't expect to do anything non-stereotypical actually, so yeah, good for you. Straight ally Jojo. Another moment of him being nice, he apologises if the confession made you feel uncomfortable. And weirdly enough, it's a moment where Gale suddenly decides that I guess she does reciprocate. She says, I don't know, I need to figure this out. And this made me realise that, like, yeah, he does confess his feelings. Gale does express that she is at least thinking about it on her side. And that just doesn't exist on Sabine's side. Even when you are, it is just, come to bed with me and have sex. There is no, I have feelings for you, I have a crush on you. It's very muted. It's an indie game. They wouldn't have had censorship they had to go around for like lesbian relationships or anything. And then Jojo actually does nothing for the rest of the chapter. He at least modifies one art asset. In the other route, this whiteboard gets used for nothing. In this route, he's drawing on the whiteboard and everyone assures you that he's doing something important to do with designing spaceships, and he's like, of course I can help and improve on what Emmett already did, but he never actually does. It's not important to the route. In Ashanti's route, she's instead sitting on this table decoding this Chinese book of the regulations for the military, and it's like its key importance to getting suddenly sexist colonel man to go to the infirmary to have his medical thing, which means you can do all the rest of the chores, etc, etc. And then on Jojo's route, he can't help with that at all, and what it's replaced with is the most unintuitive guide thing of all the world. You just have to pick up the Chinese book and find the random NPC standing around the base that's Chinese, and it's based entirely on just, oh, your name sounds kind of Chinese, because the graphics don't really have a graphic for Asian eyes. I didn't know that Huang was a Chinese name as opposed to a Korean name. I don't know very much about surnames, so I couldn't have found out about the guide. It does just feel like fundamentally silly to like have a major resolution to a side quest just be find a man of an ethnicity. Oh, and this guy has no role in the other route of the game. And then I had to laugh at how they try and make it seem like Jojo does do something, and it literally, even within the text of what you see in this version of the route, Jojo is not actually necessary for this option. In the other route, you just go to the one droid, the guy who's from the same line of droids as Emmett, and he's like, yeah, I can repair Emmett because I intimately know exactly how we work way more than a human engineer would. But then when Jojo is here, the droid goes, oh, because of my programming, I'm not allowed to do this repair because it says if there's a qualified human, the human has to do it. So the only reason that you have to go to Jojo to ask for help is because the more qualified, better option physically cannot do it due to a quirk of how machines work. So Jojo is basically useless, and I feel bad for him now because he's had a few humanizing moments. Looking back and editing these two pieces of footage, I realised I wasn't 100% fair here, because when you think about it, what Ashanti does on her route is also not necessary on Jojo's route. It does feel like she's having more of an active effect when she is spending the whole chapter decoding the Chinese book, but to know that you could have just walked around a corner and found there's one Chinese crew member anyway, means that really neither of them needed to be saved at all. Gale could have hypothetically just continued the game as it is with neither of them, but that's not an option, but that's interesting to imagine as an AU. And then anyway, when you get to the end, instead you have a choice between two gender options for your big romance moment. And I do like the phrasing, you had two guardian angels while you were in that infirmary. And the thing is, the whole way the game is set up, it doesn't feel like there should be a choice for a romance option. It's so obvious that Sabina should be just the canon option. She's the one who has all of the plot. And what's bizarre about that is, Jojo gets more in his romance route than Sabine does. Much, much more. This scene is much longer. You actually see him with his top off. You have any kind of fan service going on whatsoever. You don't actually see a sex scene either way, but one has a longer dialogue scene with him walking around in some little animations and stuff. With Sabine and Gale, it does just cut to and waking up the next morning and you don't get to see what happened. And that thing is, it's kind of comical. Only now he remembers Ashanti is still in prison. It's like, oh, I need to go rescue Ashanti. Ashanti at the very start of the route was like, everything I do for this chapter is going to be going towards the goal of rescuing Jojo eventually. And with Jojo, it's just like, okay, post-nut clarity, after I've fucked someone else, I'm like, oh, it kind of sucks when I left my best friend, who I guess had a crush on me but I didn't reciprocate, in a big fucking prison, and I haven't really thought about helping her this whole time. So he just says, okay, I'm not going to take part in the mission we have tomorrow, I'm not going to be part of the plot, I'm going to go off on a side mission to save Ashanti, the same thing she was planning to do in the other route. But it took him so long to think of it. And anyway, it's an obvious excuse for why, even though you've romanced him, he won't have the big role in the plot that Sabine is obviously going to have. You would think, logically, if you make this moment where you can choose between two lovers, you might have swapped their roles in the plot for the next chapter. It might be like, oh, and now Jojo will be your main deuteragonist instead of Sabine, and that's how we're going to handle it. But no, you get a grand total of one love scene, and then he leaves. So maybe that's the reason why he has more of a clear confession and a long scene of any actual bonding and talking as well as having sex. It's because he's not going to be around for much longer, and they didn't want to be as... It's still really disappointing though, but it could have been more disappointing, I guess. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's not just we can't show much because they're lesbians. But yeah, basically his side of the route is terrible, 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 terrible. At the very end, gets more than her. Comparatively speaking, the least crap chapter in this game so far. Aside from weird, of its time depictions of disability, yeah, I'm at least slightly optimistic maybe the end will be good. Okay, final chapter was remarkably worse than I expected. I shouldn't have got my hopes up. It wasn't as bad as I thought when I first started the whole game, but Remember how the last thing we saw was, and now we're going to go fight the bad guys. We don't do that. You teleport into one of the bad guy bases, and you go around doing various chores to sabotage various machines so we can let the main army come in to fight them. And then when you do, it just cuts to it being over. You don't get to participate anyway. You don't even get to see a cutscene of all the characters. All of those characters we saw, like, oh, here are all your friends in the rebellion. They're never seen again after that cutscene. It is just, there you go. And this one line here really baffled me. These are CO2 filters. They remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and recycle it into oxygen. Apparently nobody's told them that plants exist. Sabine is supposed to be a smart scientist. Why would she say something as stupid as this? Like, writers, when you are writing a character who is supposed to be good at a subject, don't reveal that you yourself know bullshit about that subject. There are 10,000 obvious reasons why you might want to use a CO2 filter instead of a plant. Like, one, a plant takes an amount of time to filter CO2. If you can't just sit there waiting, a very large amount of plants, in order to filter a usable amount of oxygen from CO2, depending on the area, depending on the conditions, depending on what type of plant it is, can it survive in this atmosphere in the first place, and having to have people constantly maintain it for multiple days to get a livable level of oxygen in that room. Secondly, CO2 filters can be put over your mouth so you can just go out there and survive in an environment. Third, CO2 filters can be applied to a whole building. We're not told the size of these CO2 filters. We don't know if they're emergency CO2 filters. Like, for right now, if you right now need the CO2 filtered and you can't wait on your ass for someone to bring in a palm tree. Come on, Sabina. And then this puzzle I despised. Oh, it's a keyboard to enter a password, and every number is a musical code, and you're giving no further clues except that you just have to listen to a sound clip in a different room and run over here and press the keys which match it for a sound clip, and you have to just have perfect pitch. You just have to have this skill that not every human being has. I, for the life of me, cannot tell in any way what notes are being played in what order when you play a string of notes in front of me. I just can't. I got stumped in a very similar puzzle in Final Fantasy X2, and luckily in that one you could brute force it by fighting a whole bunch of extra bonus bosses to get through, but here I just had to look up the guide. Another error in the guide, it says that the solution is randomized and can only be tomorrow or today. When I did it, the solution was yesterday instead, so I guess all three options are randomly possible on this particular puzzle, and they just hadn't found the final one. It seems it was a very confusing puzzle that needed a lot of people collaborating to figure it out. A second confusing, I guess not mistake, just assumption, is they consistently call this character the boy, rather than her name, which is Greening, and her sprite clearly is using the female base model. It has noticeable boobs. So I don't know if what's going on is if this character has an error and is using a sprite that's not meant to be fitting for them and they are actually a boy, or more likely the character is just a girl, and for some reason the guide maker made a strange assumption. And I'm pretty sure several characters do say she, her in relation to her anyway, so I don't know what's going on here. Maybe this and the prevalence of tan skin for actually dark skin characters, maybe in version updates for this game they changed the sprites for certain characters. That's the only explanation that comes to mind. I did find it interesting, at least, that you play as Sabine and Gale and also Emmett, and they all go to different places to do various boring chores to gradually sabotage these things so everyone else can come in and win the war for you. But all of these sections are pretty short and not very interesting. And the thing that baffled me the most is, you know how both Ashanti and Jojo said, and I will now go off and rescue Jojo and Ashanti? That's also not part of this. If they want to do you splitting up into multiple groups, it could have been like, and here is the main team that's going inside to sabotage these various things so the army can get in, and here is the one who's with the army and they're fighting to actually get in, and here is the one going on this extra mission to go and rescue Ashanti and and everybody else, and then they come in the last minute and they come and help him with the big fight and we see a cutscene of the big fight. That would have been nice. Instead of it's three people just in different parts of the same base doing basically the same task. All I can say is it's neat that this time you play as Sabine first and Gale last, as opposed to all the previous chapters. Doesn't really mean anything, but it's something new. I found it unintentionally comical that when every character bursts in to do their various chores in different parts of the base, they just have different colour versions of the same spacesuit sprite, and two of them are terribly recoloured, like really, really not good looking, and it's supposed to be the most serious part of the plot. It also bugged me a lot that the colour coding isn't actually correct. Emmett is a blue one, Sabine is a black one, it should be the other way around. And this fucking jump scared me. I completely forgot that the code name for Emmett's type of robot is the same as my old username, so this just slapped me in the face. And one single continuity reference to all of the shit that's happened from, like, Game 2 to here. One of the guys from the drug smuggling ring, I can't remember who he is, I don't know if this is the guy who was doing the monkey racing, or the guy in the nightclub where you had to dress as a nurse to overhear the right thing. Anyway, one of these guys blazed out of his mind with a stupid character design. It appears here he's gone captured by the bad guys, he's getting interviewed, and I found a genuinely really funny continuity reference is he lies and says, I've got some intel on a bunch of people, and he describes the characters from this Easter egg, really bad TV show you can see if you click on the televisions in every single chapter and you can get achievement for it, and I thought that was cute, that was genuinely funny. I felt rewarded for going around looking at all the environment design. This moment doesn't have any relevance to the main plot though, it's just a little bit of fun there as an optional bonus. And I kind of got the feels for, like, one moment. Emmett briefly meets the horrible lady who killed his dad and takes revenge, but she gets a fatal shot to his face, and, like, the graphic is really cool here, actually. Like, it's not actually, like, gore, it's, like, half his face has been cut off and there's, like, computer code on the inside, and I think that looks really cool and also really sad. We'll get to the continuation of this scene in a little bit, because I've got some more stuff to go through. It's one of those ones just like, and we stop in medias res, and we don't know what's happened to him, and we'll come back after you finished everybody else's story. And it's like, it did feel a bit baffling how Emmett's side of the story is actually, like, really cool and dramatic, and the other two are just kind of, let's trundle around putting this box in that box, and put some pills in the coffee, and put the coffee in the pot, and put the coffee pot in the mug, and knock some guys out to walk in to get a recording device, to walk up to a lady. Nothing in the game tells you that you have to press the recording device on this lady, and then you can get through an elevator. I'm not even going to bother describing all the bullshit I went through. Just know it's more of the same. And here's this on-the-nose line saying exactly that. I'm torn between liking and hating it. It was cool at least that the very last puzzle you do is also the same as the very first puzzle from Chapter 1, not beating the allegations that you can just skip straight from Game 1 to Game 4, but anyway, lowering various power consumption on different things to get this. In the first chapter it was to get the teleporter working, in this chapter it's to do the opposite, to get a certain thing not working so you can break in and everyone can save the day. Off-screen and invisible cutscene. I'm never going to let that go. Another small case of a character who's completely inconsistent between their portrait and their overworld sprite. We haven't seen that since the Amari priestess lady in Chapter 2. This guy is tan-skinned and completely bald on his portrait. On the overworld he's light-skinned and has like a little grandpa back of the hair thing. This one puzzle and only this puzzle can only be input using the keyboard. Everything else in the entirety of the last 4 games can be played in point-and-click style. And you've seen the previous screenshots, there was a different interface for entering in a 4-digit passcode, specifically so it could be used with the mouse instead of the keyboard, and they just forgot to implement it for this one box. This one particular room with this sad grandpa has an entirely unique musical track which sounds awesome. Oh, and the reward for finishing the puzzle here is to turn the cool music off. Okay, come on. Why couldn't you use this track anywhere else in the game? There hasn't been very much remarkable music throughout the entirety of my playthrough. I do appreciate, though, that this one grandpa is the only purely nice grandpa. There are no conditions, you don't have to do anything bad to him. He's just hanging out, and he's lovely, and you say hi, and you leave. I hope that he was in no way injured by the off-screen fight and has been liberated from the side of the bad guys and has gone on to live a wonderful life of redemption. Him and his tiny, tiny eyes. And now we get to the continuation of Emmett's scene, and this made me almost tear up, and the only thing that made me stop tearing up is They wouldn't do this, would they, really? And I'll tell you at the end whether I was right. But Emmett's like, I'm dying, I'm fucking dying on the floor, I'm gonna die on the floor in the saddest way possible, in the sweetest, saddest sad. I'm gonna tell you the poem that Dr. Ballot used to sing to me as I slept, as I bleed out of my cool code face. I'm gonna give you a dramatic reading. I have nowhere near a voice cool enough for a droid, but just bear with me. Though earth and man were gone, and suns and universes ceased to be, and thou were left alone, every existence would exist in thee. There is not room for death, nor atom that his might could render void. Thou art being and breath, and what thou art may never be destroyed. Dramatic fade out, that's where the whole game ends. The next part we skip to is technically the epilogue. There's no further puzzles, there is just you walk around and you see some more scenes. How much do you guys want to bet they'll completely undo that one single emotional moment in the entire series very soon? But before we get to that, I thought it was cool that you get new character designs for both of them just in this epilogue section. It does suck when I can't properly compare them in my big comparison I showed you at the start of the video, because you never get to control Sabine in this section, you never get to see her facing downwards, so she's going to be the only one inconsistent on that graphic. I'm apologising for that now, because if I apologised for it at the start I would have spoiled the whole thing. Anyway, this is the culmination. The only other thing you get from your romance choice is whoever you pick will be here escorting you to the facility. I'm glad at least to know that the facility is actually nice, is not like a stereotypical asylum. Didn't really give that impression from the previous conversations in the last chapter, but I'm glad it all worked out in the end. Anyway, the one you love will just drop you off here and leave, and you get like about 2 sentences of dialogue. I don't know if you pick Jojo you get more, probably likely, but I'm so done with the game I can't be bothered, so there you go. What's going on with you today? You're being so nice. I can be when I want to be. This is our 1-year anniversary after all. So I can only expect this once every 12 months. Ha ha ha, pee hee hee hoo, pun, and then she just leaves. So the sum total of what you get for her romance route is, we had sex and then we said we've been in a relationship for a year. They never say I love you, they never confess, they never kiss. It's really, really, really minimal. Still kind of feel like I didn't get anything out of this. Oh well, that's what fanfics are for. Walking around the room, you just get told what happened off screen is, yeah, everyone else won the battle off screen, and the entire way of the whole universe working in terms of, like, government has changed off screen, and we don't see it, we don't get to, like, explore the world, how much has changed now, we don't even get to talk to anyone, we didn't get the most minor cutscene of just some guys running at each other and then gunshots go off or something. It really is just, you look at the magazines and it says, oh, the Colonel, he's now famous because he was the guy who did the rebellion and saved everyone. You talk to the guy at the counter and Gale says, yeah, my dad has gone off on another one of his adventures. He's doing, like, scientific aid work for people recovering in one of the various locations we visited along the way, I think. And on the TV it says someone else took over the government, and I think I vaguely remember the name Layla was mentioned at some point in one of the early chapters. I probably might have met her, but I can't associate that name with her face. It was clearly one of the not very memorable characters. She was the one who was in the wheelchair, who was indeed someone who knew Emmett and worked with his dad on that base. She just wasn't the soldier one, she was one of the researcher ones. So I was in fact mixing her up with a different character, but also not at the same time. Yep, the entirety of the Space Cops were defeated by nobody, in the void, in the upside down, in the 0.2 seconds of our loading screen. This is a terrible, terrible way to wrap up your story, I'm so sorry. And then you get a kind of heartwarming moment in the end, you get Gale finally visiting her mother. The mum talks completely normal. She is literally just like, oh, I'm completely fine, but I have memory issues sometimes. Like, we don't get any discussion of her seizures or her nightmare world thing. She is just having, like, completely normal Alzheimer's right now. And it ends on a sweet note where you think she doesn't recognise you and she doesn't know that it's you. She calls you Annie instead of Gale. And then, right when Gale's about to leave, and she's like, oh, I'm so discouraged. After everything, she may never recognise me ever again. The mum says another thing that clues you in, oh, Annie was my nickname when I was a baby, and Dad just didn't tell me that either. Because we both had the same first name. Mum used to call you this when you were a baby. And that's sweet, and that's lovely. It ends on a note of, hey, maybe someday she might be starting to get better, she might be regaining her memory. I don't know why the dad didn't also come to visit her. I don't know why the dad abandoned her for 20 years in this facility. If a condition is just on a degree of, like, again, literally normal Alzheimer's, like, why would you not visit her at all? Why would you lock up all proof she ever existed from your daughter? Why would that be portrayed as perfectly okay? But I'm going to just discard all these things because the writers probably didn't even think about them. It was just, here is plot device illness, and it will work exactly how we want any particular given point in the story. I'm just glad it wrapped up in a good way, and she is in fact okay, and we do in fact see her, and she may possibly have a realistic actual future of either recovering or finding a way to live with her condition and reconnecting with her family in this way. Great, wonderful. Wish the dad hadn't fucked off. Anyway, we go back and we see Ashanti and Jojo, and they say a joke about their sex life, and that is the entire culmination of this side plot. Then we walk away. And would you believe, it was a total fucking fake out of Emmett dying. It takes a grand total of, like, less than 7 minutes from his death to finding this out. Anyway, his brain just got downloaded into another one of the cool robots from Chapter 1 who never returned, but at least we see, and it was technically foreshadowed by the last chapter saying they were a previous version of him made by the same doctor. And they are now building him a new body which will perfectly mimic a human so he can have a good, happy life. And he has literally the happiest ending physically possible. I was 100% a fake out that anything bad happened to him at all. So we have no battle, no ending, no sacrifice. Everyone happy, great. And I always like to laugh at this line saying, oh, it's quite an improvement on his own design. I've remarked upon his design being one of the only designs I liked because the way they used default assets to make a creative robot man looked cool compared to everyone else who is just generic base game RPGmaker faces. So no, I don't think it's an improvement to just turn him into generic base game RPGmaker faces too. But this line made me regret my words and deeds. That is indeed really sweet that he's designing a body to look like the biological son of his dad. That's really fucking sad, and I'm crying, and I'm glad in the end Dr. Balak, Dr. Grandpa Dad, has continued being relevant to the story, and we all miss him right to the final scene of the game. And there you go. Only other thing I can remark on is, it's mildly interesting that this time the credits play with all of the assets used in every single game in the series rather than just this final one. But yeah, it's quite abrupt and dissatisfying, and I wish I had not spent so long drudging my way through this game series. Alright, so in the end, let's try and wrap us up with a summary. The things I liked about the game, all the little attention to detail of things gradually changing throughout the chapters, the things around the ship, the different outfits for the characters, the space sitcom we could watch every time. Counterpoint thing I disliked, how the main story didn't have that. Very little sense of any actual progression throughout the whole thing. The formula for basically every chapter was either you just have to do a bunch of random chores irrelevant to nothing, or a problem has happened, something has shaken up a status quo, you must do a long series of chores to get things back to exactly how they were, and nothing overall is gained from it. The only real things that felt like they mattered through the whole series was just when we met Emmett. Even the stuff about finding your dad and finding out the truth about your mum didn't really amount to anything. It was just, here's how we can have a scene to end the series on and make it feel heartwarming, I guess, but when it's a resolution to a thing that was only really brought up a little while before the ending anyway, I don't feel as much as I could have. And there's also no resolution to what's going on with your potentially prophetic visions, potentially you having this same neurodegenerative disease as your mum. That was just dropped, and considering how we know the sequel series has a different protagonist, I doubt they would wrap it up there. Okay, another positive. I liked the idea of flipping back and forth between a perspective of different characters and them having different flavour text, and just generally the building bond between you and Sabine. Going back to another negative, the way they handled the romance through it was terrible. I don't need to summarise that again, I've already covered all the problems I have with it. It was really just made even more anticlimactic by the fact that she is such an incredibly important character of the plot who you play as multiple times, and you would really expect the resolution to her romance plot to be something good in any way. There was also a real problem of, like, sequelitis through the whole series. Many of these chapters just didn't really wrap up or conclude in any way, and it was just, we're setting up for the next game, we're setting up for the next thing. And that also makes the ending being so cataclysmically uninteresting even worse because you've been hyped up for so long. I do not have a further good thing to say. I guess all I can bring up is the first chapter was great because it did have a fully contained story that wrapped up and had, like, development, and everything you did seemed to matter. Just for the rest of the series, the creator was kind of spinning their wheels, trying to find things to fill the space to justify it being a series. I would personally recommend just play chapter 1, and like, even if you play chapter 1 and you think, oh, I really like this, I'm going to like the other chapters, be cautious going into them. I would say try chapter 2, and if you had as much of a bad time with chapter 2 as I did, then just drop it there. It was not worth slogging through all this. I say slogging, but like, every individual episode ranges between like 1 to 4 hours at the maximum. These are not long games, and the fact it's taken me almost an entire year to finish this is a real testament to how bad it gets. Be wary, guys. And that is my final opinion on everything, and I am so glad to be free, and to edit a big video of me being sad about things, which will hopefully entertain you in the audience.